So we are starting. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests very cordially. It is a great honor for us that Visegrad countries send their partners here personally. I'd like to extend special welcome to the representative of the Visegrad Fund, Madam Ewelina Stacherzak, and the ambassador of the Czech Republic, His Excellency the Bial Tibor. Thank you very much to the Visegrad Fund that already the second time gave us opportunity to discuss a very interesting topic, women, families, career, and the effect of the pandemic on the labor market and work-life balance in the Visegrad countries, so that we can actually carry out this project, because the Hungarian Career Development, Women's Career Development Association found it very important that in this region too we investigate separately what kind of impact the pandemic had on work-life balance and family. This is a very interesting region. We have a common history, culture, values, and interests. And at the moment, Hungary gives the presidency of this Visegrad cooperation. And in the world, we are counted as a cooperating unit, and it also proves the fact that our prime ministers are negotiating with Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the UK. It is an honor to us that in a region where, for example, family policy, we think about family policy in a very similar way, and that we can carry out the research, the result of which can be used in our different countries if you are in the, or will be in the decision-making process, especially as regards the labor market. But at the international level, we are also present, and we show our cooperation at the international arena as well. And our projects are also presented at the EU level. I don't want to go into the details at the moment, but I'd like to welcome all those who are following us in this today's event online, because more than 100 participants joined us or registered that they are interested in this event, starting from the United States to South Africa and from lots of other countries. At the end, we will count how many actually got involved, and I'd like to thank them especially that that you are interested in us. And now that we have responsibilities here, so we are a little bit late, but we'd like to stick to the time frame. And I'd like to ask all the speakers to please adhere to this. And I'd like to invite Ewelina Stacherzak, sorry if I don't pronounce her name very well, that, to say a few words to the conference on behalf of the Visegrad Fund.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a very great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Ms. Ferenczi, for the invitation. When I received this invitation a few weeks ago, I was thinking with which words I would like to start my speech. And then last week, I came across some picture, and I think it will be a beginning of my speech. So there was a picture of stroller for babies left on the train station by Polish mothers for Ukrainian mothers. And I saw these pictures, and I was thinking about this togetherness, about this cooperation, about this solidarity, about this very intensive feeling of being together in this very tragic moment for Ukraine. And when I saw the picture, I was thinking about my life, that I'm very lucky that the same very values that I believe in, my company, the place that I'm working in, also believe in, that we are matching. And this is what I'm speaking about, International Visegrad Fund. There is a place that we have very common values of togetherness, cooperation, solidarity, being joined in the cooperation, be working for some common goals. And I would like to give you a few words about what International Visegrad Fund is doing. So it's an emblematic institution of the Visegrad cooperation, furthering people-to-people relation. And this, what we are doing in our workplace, is to enhancing this cooperation between people. And we would like them to be together. We would like them to jointly make a project together across the border and actually despite the borders. We were established in year 2000 by the declaration of V4 prime ministers. Our mission is to strengthen the ties of the V4 and develop cooperation between their non-governmental institutions, civic society institution, university, educational institution, in the field of culture, education, research, science, tourism, cross-border cooperation, and youth exchange. We are supporting our grantees with the budget of 10 million euro per year. Our seats are located in Bratislava, so about 2.5 hours by train from here. And we have two decision-making bodies, is Council of Ambassadors and the Conference of Ministries of Foreign Affairs. And since we were established almost 22 years ago, we supported already a few projects and few scholarships. Our mobilities and ideas were supported with a budget of over 100 million euro. And we believe is this joint cooperation and balanced development. We believe that the success can be just real when it's shared. So because we support our regional projects in the Visegrad region, but we believe also that region cannot really grow without the neighbors growing with us. So 20% of IVF grants are dedicated to the Eastern Partnership countries, Western Balkan countries, as well to the other non-V4 countries. So we believe that just together we can grow in a very sustainable and balanced way. Over this 21 years, 6,000 grants were implemented and almost 3,000 people were supported with the scholarship and with the residency support. We have a network of institutions cooperating together. We supported over 3,000 entities with our grants, but each grant is applicant, but also the consortium who is cooperating with the applicant to implement the grant. So the institutions which are creating this network all around our region, but also neighboring regions, it's much bigger than these 3,400 entities. And our projects, or actually our grantees project, were implemented in more than 600 cities. And here is the map, so you can imagine how big is it. It's not just this region, but we have basically map of Europe, but our projects are also implemented all around the world. So it's not just Visegrad countries, but it's also another part of the globe who are cooperating together and implementing scholarship, residencies, and grants together. We are supporting two main projects. One is grant schemes and one is mobilities. And our main mobilities is Visegrad Scholarship Mobility for the students from our region, but also neighboring regions. We are supporting Visegrad Scholarship at Open Society Archives here in Budapest. We are supporting research grants at Historical Archives of the EU in Florence. And we have also a program for civil servants. They can go for the mobility in V4 region. And what we are supporting within the Visegrad Scholarship program is the scholarship for students from Visegrad countries or students also from Eastern Partnership and Western Balkan countries who can come study to another region. We are training more than 190 higher education institutions who offer places for students. And in 2020, we were supporting 143 scholars with our scholarship program, and they could go on to study in very various and different fields abroad. We are supporting also arts residencies, performing arts, visual and sound art residents in New York for 4 artists from V4 countries, and literary residencies for Visegrad artists. And what is our main activities is a grant scheme. We have 3 types of grants with which we support entities in our regions, but also neighboring regions. It's the Visegrad grant scheme, Visegrad Plus grant scheme, and strategic grants. We seek to advance innovative ideas that address shared challenges by high-quality regional cooperation and project. And what we would like to do with our grants, that all the entities involved in the implementation are cooperating together to develop the region or to solve the problem which is tackling our region or one of our neighboring regions. So as I mentioned, our interest region is also Eastern Partnership countries and Western Balkan countries. And we are now working, of course, of some special opportunity for Ukraine, as this is the region, one of the Eastern Partnership countries. We are also, as I mentioned, are supporting strategic grant schemes, where in this very year, we are also supporting the projects related to the COVID recovery. I believe this is as a part of our conference to discuss how the COVID pandemic influenced not just our region, but in general the world. So this is something that we would like to also help maybe to solve or support the entities who are thinking how to solve the consequences of COVID pandemic. We are also supporting the ideas related to returning to the roots of Visegrad cooperation, as well as promoting regional brand and tourism. We have 7 focus areas for our project. And nonetheless, the most common, as you can see, is the culture and common identity and education and capacity building. So these are the areas that our future applicants can come and submit the application in these areas. Nonetheless, as you can see, the most important and the biggest focus area is culture and the education, and we believe this is something very important which must be always supported. And I would like to, by the end, just mention maybe a few successful projects from this field. One is post-COVID recovery of small family business in V4 countries, developed by Mendel University in Brno. Is one of the projects who aims is to search some solution how to help the small family business during the COVID pandemic, how to find these good practices and share them among the region. And the second successful project, which I would like to mention today, is the Child in a Kinship Care Preparation and Further Support of the Families, implemented by Association Pride from Czech Republic. This is a project which is searching the comparison of children's system in all the countries who are participating in the project, and again sharing the good practice among all of the project partners. And I hope that through this conference, the project that you are now developing will be also, not just maybe through this conference, but in general through your activities will be successful. And I hope that for some of my future presentation about International Visegrad Fund, I will be able to also put the slides about your project in my presentation and hopefully tell how much successful this activity was for you, for me, and also for our region. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this presentation. And I'd like to only encourage you to please participate in the Visegrad grant schemes. It's not easy, but I think it's a very good environment, and we can spend these amounts to lots of good things. On the 8th of March, the International Day of the Woman, that's when we organize our conference, which is a kind of multiplication kind of event. And it's a special joy and honor for us that His Excellency Bial Tibor is here with us, the ambassador of the Czech Republic, and he, as a man and as an ambassador, says a few words of welcome to our conference. Good afternoon to you all. If you allow me, because that's how invitation was, I will speak in Hungarian and say a few words of greetings. I must tell you that I was very happy to accept this invitation because a year and a half ago, I had the honor of being here with you and participate at such a conference. And it is a special joy to me that having overcome the pandemic, again, the opportunity presents itself to meet personally and online as well, and speak about this very interesting and very important topic. Allow me to tell you that this is interesting and important to me especially, I mean, this whole topic of the conference, because 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when I entered into my office, my first official event that was held at our embassy, again, was together with another Hungarian NGO, and it was also about the social standing of women and their role in the higher leadership. So this was a topic that we discussed at the time, and I'm very happy that ever since then, there are events and activities of this kind, because in this topic, there is still a lot to do. Allow me to quote a result in the European Institution for Gender Equality, which was made in 2020. It was a big survey, one of its last surveys about gender equality. They identified an index where 100% was the maximum. And for example, the Czech Republic received 23.2%. With this, we are standing at a 23rd place from among the EU countries, and exactly 11.7 points under the EU average that we were. And the other V4 countries were even behind the Czech Republic. So in this region, it proves that it is very much justified to speak about this topic. Certainly, we also see that, for example, in healthcare, we are doing quite well, because gender equality in healthcare shows a much better picture, but the proportion of women dropped significantly in the decision-making positions, especially in the private sector. And in our region, one of the main reasons for this is the low level of flexibility of workplaces, which makes it especially difficult for women, for mothers, to balance between family and work and career. And another very important issue, which is very typical of our region, and that is the high pay gap between men and women, which is around 22%. Even though, according to a 2020 study that I found by McKinsey Research Institute, and it says, for example, that in places where 30% or more of the leadership is women, they are 48% more efficient and perform better. So these results speak for themselves, and they show that we should not be afraid of this, and we need to attempt to do anything in order to make sure that women's role in the workplace too be enhanced. Career of men and women up to about the age of 30 are about the same. They show the same curve, but this trend changes when ladies have families, they become mothers, and they leave temporarily their work for the labor market. And returning to the labor market is something that puts a lot of challenges in front of them. Sometimes they don't even get back to the labor market, or they get back to it to a lower level of a job. Evidently, in the past 2 years, because of the pandemic, the situation became even worse, because you ladies, mothers, have even more difficult of a job, because during the pandemic, practically, home office spread, working from home office spread quite a lot. So practically, you were forced to be in the same place where your family and your work and all the related responsibilities had to be carried out. And this was a horrendous job to you, to be able to care for your families and at the same time do your job as expected and necessary. But we all know that there is a tremendous potential in you, and that's why you need a lot of support in order to be able to reconcile your families, your work, and your careers. I tried to read about this and look into this, and I was happy to see that in our region there are already some larger societies or companies, organizations, or units, entities, where significant steps have been taken. And there are already some practical examples to be followed in our region too. So here too, let me give you some figures. In a telecommunication company where they take it very seriously, I mean, they take this topic very seriously, that re-employment in this past 2 years went up from 46% to 64%. This is just one of the positive examples of all the other benefits. The Gender Equality Department of the Government Office of the Czech Republic in January organized an online conference which is about equal pay and transparency. These were the focuses. And the European Commission had an initiative in 2021, and we reacted to this, which is also which also published a kind of recommendation for a directive. The Czech Republic, starting this summer, takes over the rotating presidency of the EU for 6 months, and we will focus on this issue as well. So this conference at the beginning of the year will be followed by other events, and I do hope very much that the news of these events will reach you and you will be able to participate. Your event is an excellent example of searching this path. And it's wonderful to have this opportunity among the V4 countries to discuss the results of these surveys and studies. And the participants can speak about their personal experiences. For you too, this could be very inspiring for the future. So I wish you a lot of success in this and a lot of energy and perseverance. And since today is the International Day of Women, allow me to wish you a very happy International Women's Day. And if you allow me just a very personal remark on my part, among you, I have an old standing friend. So through this person, I'd like to wish a lot of energy to the Chipat people. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your kind words. And as far as I know, he will have to leave earlier. But I'd like to inform you that the topics that you mentioned here, almost all of them, we are very much interested in them. And in these topics, it's not that we only talk about this, but we are also trying to get some answers and solutions, because there will be companies here with us who are employers in Hungary, exemplary examples, and who were winners of last year Best Women's Workplace. And now, today, we are announcing that we will also speak about last year's winners, and we will have it next year too. And the Semmelweis University and culturally holding representatives are also here with us, and it's a special pleasure for us that at a huge university with lots of employees and a company is present here representing itself, where we would not have expected that they pay so much attention to women, because these are more like a technical kinds of work that they do. So I'd like to tell you that I haven't talked about the war yet, and I haven't talked about the horrible things and sadnesses that now I define our lives, for all of us. But perhaps there is a little bit of joy that Hungary and our countries are especially there among the first responders, among the first helpers. The president of the Red Cross is right here with us. I don't know if it's come yet. And there are several organizations and people are present here who are already participating in this assistance. And I myself have international level plans related to this. So thank you ever so much. And perhaps we will have a chance to tell you what actually happened during the day here today, and what announcements and agreements will have been reached. But now I think we've already mentioned that there are all kinds of researches going on, and we have all the data from research, and we'd like to enrich the available information and knowledge through our research work and project that we got a chance to do, for which we got this grant. And some people cannot be here personally, and most of it is due to the pandemic, which is still present here with us. So now we'll have a video. Ildikó Modláné, she is the head of the research, and she will tell us what the research was about and what were the outcome. And especially for those who will make decisions in the future, what is it that we can offer them? I'd like to greet all the participants of the conference, distinguished president, distinguished partners, dear guests. I'd like to show you the research whose title is Women, Family, Career, the Impact of the Pandemic on Work-Life Balance in the Visegrad countries. Now, my presentation covers secondary research and primary research, and the details. I'd like to present to you the focus group, the hypotheses, and the recommendations for decision makers, and some interesting correlations that we found out from the results of the research. Regarding secondary research sources, since the onset of the pandemic, the situation of countries, well, I'd like to highlight a couple of research in it. Eurofound, that was for 2 years, which was about equality and the situation of women in the market and the labor market, which was done in the framework of the European Parliament. The next one was the women's situation in light of the COVID. It was an OECD analysis. Teleworking during COVID-19 pandemic, It was analyzed by ILO, and in this situation, when we identified the topic of the research and put the questions together, the Maria Kopa Institute and the Századvég Foundation prepared analysis in which they found that in the V4 countries are the most family-centric countries, or family-focused countries. Besides the different individual researches, there were some coalitions also. Now V4 countries had a kind of agreement signed in 2001. And I'd like to mention another research, which does not mean that there were no other research works, but this is a typical, these were the typical researches. McKinsey and Oxford Economics researches I'm talking about, which meant that millions of women were forced out of the of the labor markets, and how we could help them so that they could return to the labor market. So these were the foundations of our primary research, where we studied the impact of COVID as related to women's employment and work-private life balance. We had a questionnaire survey, and in order to refine it, we also had focus groups interviewed. The studies were done in all 4 countries in different locations in Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia. And we did not focus on a single place, but rather it was all divided. So we dare say that it was a representative survey from this region. Regarding the questionnaire survey and the focus group interviews, I'd like to share with you a couple of typical features thereof. One of them is that the question rose when we put the research together, is it possible to have a kind of single opinion formed, and will we have enough information to be able to make recommendations to the decision makers? Our goal was to study women's employment, families, and work-life balance in light of the pandemic, and to what extent it coincided with expectations. There were 12 closed questions in the questionnaire, in which 9 and 17 were the number of statements that you could choose for each question. Behind these data lines, it was the human factor that we're really curious about, and it was done using the focus group. In the 4 countries, there were 4 focus groups where the focus groups were put together based on the target groups, that is mothers with children, women planning a family, over 50 women, and rural women. In the focus groups, there were 5 to 8 people at a time. Regarding the questionnaire, 913 people filled out the questionnaire, and I will share with you a couple of typical data feature, which will be enhanced or widened later on. 70% of the responders lived in marriage or in a relationship. Regarding family planning, they did not change their ideas. It was only postponed. 34% responded this way. Now, regarding the in-person work at workplace, 63% said that they were doing that, and 37% worked in home office. 35% of the responders were able to do their job from home office very safely, and the employers now used atypical work organizations and working, and we could see that in the highly qualified labor, typically the highly qualified labor worked in remote working. It was 68%. In the medium level, or lower level, it was only 32%. They mostly attended their workplace. It was in attendance. Now, regarding the questionnaire survey, I'd like to highlight a couple of elements. As the new working models developed, the digital literacy increased quite a lot. It went up to 47%. Now the pandemic changed the whole atmosphere of families. The closeness typically brought families together, and it was interesting that panic and criticism of one another dropped to a minimum, to about 2 or 3%. We could also see very typically that the pandemic changed the daily routine of families, especially regarding the age group between 41 and 50, because families with children, women were learning together with the children. They had to help teaching the children besides doing their home office work. Regarding hygienic environment, they were also included in our questionnaire. Regarding the disinfectant and their use, their buy, their purchase became very important. A lot of people consider it very important, and the fewer people found it just as important, the use of masks. And those who responded, 37% of them worked at the workplace, and they did a job where they did not consider hygiene as that very important. Regarding family planning, it was postponed. The plans were not changed, just postponed. And the fact that the situation of women was totally changed by the COVID, well, we could see that from the fact that 33% of the responders found that the household and teaching the children were done by women in parallel. And in addition, they also played a coordinating role, which was very important. It was interesting to see the statement related to television channels programs, that they found it very correct that they showed a lot of hygienic rules. Yet at the same time, the topic of organizing family and children, caring for children, it was very minimal as they presented them. Now, regarding government measures and families and jobs in connection of COVID, they found them quite correct. They highlighted health measures, introduction of a moratorium, a loan payment, and support of atypical work. Regarding the focus group interviews, 29 interviews were analyzed. 105 text sequences were selected, and they were grouped into 8 thematic groups. Out of these, these were projected to some of these were projected to the questionnaire. 6 Czech, 8 Polish, 6 Hungarian, and 7 Slovak nationality people participated. Regarding the focus group, especially those questions were highlighted which were identified at the beginning. The first one was regarding the organization and the functioning of the family. And despite of this, the pandemic did have a big impact on the functioning of the family, and the family and work balance was upset. They used different methods to ease the tension, and of course, they felt the psychological impact of the pandemic. The second group of questions of the interview was the impact of the pandemic on everyday work and cooperation with the employer. The role of the employer and the form of work and the opportunity to work were very much in the foreground. The impact of the pandemic on online work and on teaching also was a very important factor. And reconciling work and teaching of children and was also very important, and the employers did not always pay attention to this. The third group of questions was the post-pandemic lifestyle changes and future expectations and visions. It was very interesting to see the different outcomes. A lot of people started new activities. They started to develop their talents and passions and hobbies, which had been neglected before. They started to consider learning very important, and the plan to continue to spend as much time with the family as they can was very much in the foreground. They continued to decorate their houses, and hygiene became a big part of family life. Now, we could actually see that the hypotheses that were identified at the beginning of the research, all of them, without an exception, were fulfilled and proved. We prepared a couple of recommendations for decision makers that because pandemic can occur at any time in the world, so that's why it's better to prepare for it ahead of time. In education, too, we have to be prepared with the right necessary digital background and methods. Regarding atypical working methods, it worked very well. It's very good for employers to use this, but it needs to be planned so that the work done and the payment would be in line. And we also recommend to keep IT at the developing and to keep it at the same level so that there'd be opportunities to study on and to train oneself. It's also interesting that even though fear vanished, but tension has remained in people, and media could play a much better role how these could be dispersed better, how the tensions could be eased. Now, assessment of the media is quite controversial because even though they informed us all the time during the pandemic about the health situation and everything, but they did not show us any good practices, whether it came to organizing the family or helping in teaching or education in general or easing the different tensions. From the healthcare point of view, it's very important for everyone to pay a lot of attention to hygiene, the use of a mask and disinfecting your hands, but very often the isolation of the sick family member was not always possible, and there were no methods presented on public television on this. Learning from home causes a lot of problems. Very often, not only the lack of the computer, but also lack of furniture prevented people from learning from home, and also the labor law issues must also be resolved. That what the employer needs to provide in a home office, for example, a computer. Now, there are a couple of interesting correlations in the research, and I'd like to highlight them. Now, regarding the questionnaire, there were questions, for example, number 4 and number 6, in which all 4 countries gave the answers in a very similar way, and this focus group also announced such answers. In case of the different countries, the data may be available and also waiting the answers to the questions. So 10, 11, and 12 questions, this weighing was done, But the responders chose different options in the different countries, but in lots of issues they were very similar. I will show you question number 4. Unfortunately, this presentation cannot give you all the details, but let me just give you the diagram related to this, how even the distribution was regarding the different statements. More or less, these are the same. The same applies for question number 6. Question number 6 was how pandemic impacted the atmosphere of the family. Here too, similarly in the 4 countries, the responses are quite similarly distributed. I would also like to show you the different age groups participating in the questionnaire survey. Most of them were between 41 and 50 years of age. They represented 34%, then from 30 to 40, 26%, and then the other age groups like 50 to 60, 60 to plus, and so on. And then the 21 and 30-year group. Now, regarding the responders in the different countries, that's where you can see them in a circular diagram. They were about the same. And a couple of correlations I'd like to focus on. One of such correlations is how the women's situation changed as a result of the pandemic. Almost without an exception, they all said that women had a coordinating role in all 4 countries with the weighted assessment. Work, household, and teaching children were done parallelly by women. And practically, women had to catch up in the online world because before that they had a much less knowledge of IT that was absolutely necessary. Let's look at the diagram. Now, these longer columns indicate the proportionality. The other question, number 11, there too, the correlation is very interesting because how television helped in the different countries, the different societies. And in this, again, we see a lot of similarities, even though the sentences or statements that they chose are slightly different. Because they did the teaching of different age group children in television. They also started IT training, especially in the Czech Republic. The Polish responders highlighted the hygienic rules that the television concentrated on them, and online interviews on television. Hungarians focused on the advertisement related to the pandemic, and they also showed the pandemic rules. That's what they found very important. In Slovakia, again, online interviews and information and advertisement related to the pandemic. So they sound very much alike. Now let's look at the diagram. Now, these long columns show when proportionality was done. Regarding question number 12, again, there was this weighing, and we can make very similar remarks at how the different governments helped the families and work during the pandemic. And practically, here everybody wrote that health measures were aimed at preventing the spreading of the pandemic. These were the excellent measures, but at the same time, the different countries chose other measures as well, for example, financial measures or continuing information, providing information, or interest payment of loans and so on. It's the Hungarian and the Slovak governments especially. Now, if you look at the diagram, you can see these higher columns indicate these types of correlations. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I come to the end of my presentation. I'm sure I couldn't cover all the different outcome and elements of our research, but perhaps it called attention to the fact that when it will be on the internet, it will be worthwhile to read it and go into the depth of it. You might have received the information which will reinforce your ideas in certain topics in the oncoming period. Perhaps you will rethink of your decisions. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Ildikó. She is watching us from home. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now I'd like to invite Jolanta Maczkowicz, who has come from Poland, from the beautiful Krakow. She is from our partner university from Krakow. We work together, and I'd like to invite her to deliver her presentation, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Poland. In my first words, I would like to thank Mrs. Andrea Ferenczi. Dear Andrea, thank you very much for your invitation to this project, organization of these great events. It's perfect organization. Thank you very much. Kozenon. At the beginning, I would like to present my team, the Polish research team, consists of experienced researchers and academic teachers from the Pedagogical University of Krakow. They represent a discipline as sociology, psychology, psychotherapist, pedagogy. And for many years, they have conducting interdisciplinary studies in the field of social and educational sciences. In my research team are included Dr. Ewa Śliwa, Dr. Joanna Wnęgozdek, Professor Jiří Prokop, and Marta Śliwa, and me, of course. And now I would like to say them a big thank you for your engagement and great job. And few words about COVID pandemic in Poland. A first case was reported 4th March 2020. As 1 week later, classes, activities, and schools suspended, and first restrictions on some business imposed. And next waves bring some limitations, remote learning for children, what is important for mother, right? Remote work, and some difficulties in professional and private life, as it was the same space. Methodological assumptions. Of course, this is the same. This is one project, so methodology is the same. But let me explain a few details. The main goal was to know professional and family experience of women during the pandemic. It means how the pandemic influenced it for the professional and family life. The method, it was focus group interview. The moderator was Dr. Ewa Śliwa. She is experienced sociologist who specialized in qualitative research, especially in this method. The study was conducted last December. And the group consisted of 2 representatives of each our target group. So the total, it was 8 women But during this presentation, I will present 4 cases, one of each target group. What I want to say you that my presentation will show you individual history of each woman. And analysis of research results focused on these 3 issues, like organization in the family life, daily work and cooperation with employer, transformation of the lifestyle due to the pandemic, and expectations and vision for the future. And one sentence more, as this is a qualitative research, I will present you mainly citations, because very often the citations, the statements of the respondents say and show and present much more than even best comments. And here on the tape you can see the selected cases which will be presented. And first case is Teresa. She represents group mother of the children. She's married, mother of 3 children, and she's a teacher. In her case, the pandemic allowed the whole family to spend time together and use it effectively. She said, I began to appreciate it because I had more time for my family, as I didn't have to commute 45 minutes to work. And sometimes I managed to do some extra work during the online classes, cook a meal or help my kids. In our study, all respondents emphasized the negative consequences on emotions and behaviors in their families. Teresa mentions it too. She said, after about a month, I noticed that our son, who needs more activity, began to have depressive states. We had to motivate him to participate in classes. She also mentioned that engaging in new activities helped to survive the pandemic. I thought I might improve my qualifications, so me and my husband began some training which gave us feeling we were developing and learning despite many limitations. And second thing, it was an escape from the reality. Second issue, Teresa mentioned that she had to help her children with school at the expense of her career. She said, when me and my sons began online teaching and learning, it turned out that our 2-bedroom apartment is too small. Eventually, the older son was learning in the smaller room. The younger was in the bigger room supervised by my husband, and I was teaching my students from the kitchen. The pandemic resulted in the new forms of work online, even in the areas where it had been previously impossible. It meant organizing the workplace, home office, within the private space. The classes with the students were recorded in Teams and monitored by the IT team, the duration and who was present. One had to really control oneself. So we can see how it was very difficult for her. New tool, new way to teach, yes, and all was recorded and all was under control. And post-pandemic lifestyle. Undoubtedly, the successive waves of the pandemic had some impact on lifestyle. The respondent decided to introduce changes which she had previously put off. She said, I finally saw that this is my space. I treated it like a place where we only sleep and eat. We made some changes, for example, we decorated windows. Recently, I have added some more plants because they create warm and cozy atmosphere. I began to take care of his space. We have bought a 3-tier bunk bed for the kids, So they too had their own space. And second case is Sophia, a woman who planned a family. In this case, the respondent emphasized the negative consequences of isolation in the first place. She said, the lockdown affected my mental health. I had a major breakdown. I also had to postpone the wedding date, even though and my fiancé long been planning to start a family. After a while, I began to notice that I had problems with breathing. Sophia, a student, described her struggles with remote learning as her large family was sharing a small living space. This is absolutely something incredible. There were 6 people in the apartment, she said. Me and my brother having online classes. All looked within the 4 walls. It seemed that soon we would jump at each other's throats. I had my classes, my brother had his, and we had to share one room. I disturbed him, he disturbed me. There were 2 TV sets on at the same time because our parents watched one, and grandpa, who has a hearing problems, watched other with volume high up. And I needed peace and quiet to learn. The student emphasized that she had experienced various difficulties connected with online education. Regarding those difficulties with meeting the requirements, I experienced it last year when I studied the history of art. We had to write an assignment. The books I needed to write the assignment were available only for on-site reading. I couldn't take them home, so it was great hit runs. And post-pandemic transformation. As a result of the pandemic, the student experienced a personal transformation. She acquires personal characteristics which now help her life. Once shy and insecure, she became almost a fighter. She said, I have learned to live in constant uncertainty when tomorrow is unpredictable. But the advantage, if it is that I don't leave anything for later. I have learned to study in the new conditions. I stopped being afraid of interaction with other people. My family trained me enough. I became a person who fights for their needs to be satisfied. I have also learned to set borders. Now I'm stronger than before and I can feel I'm ready to start a new chapter in my life. Third case is Maria. She represents women over 50. Maria, divorced mother of 3 daughters. She is a translator. Forced isolation increased the already existing problems and tensions. Maria shared that her husband left her during that time. Our family broke apart. I mean, there had been tension for a long time. To say it bluntly, my husband couldn't cope with this all and just move it out. It may seem strange, but both me and our daughters, we felt relief. It had cleared the atmosphere. The respondent mentioned that she had to help her children with school at the expense of her career. My job too depended on my younger daughter. Using computer to learn was new to her. She struggled with online communication with her teachers. I was lucky because my profession allowed me to modify my schedule and do my job late in the evening or very early in the morning. And the problem was that we had one PC and one notebook. Suddenly it turned out that we need twice as much. The respondent decided to engage in new activities and develop passions for which she had no time before. I decided that I would finally get my driving license. I began the course and I will soon take the exam, so I hope I will finally make this happen. I am translator, but English had been always my weakness, so I decided to finally take the challenge. I also adopted a dog and I think it was a great idea. I felt better, I could go out and walk, and began to notice the beautiful world around, the changing seasons. In her case, paradoxically, the pandemic has changed her life for better practically in all areas: family, professional, personal. And last case is Monica, a woman living in the countryside. She is married, she is a beautician. Forced isolation, being locked in a small space, and lack of conditions to work remotely also generated tensions and conflict. Monica recalls, "There were many tensions when my husband worked from home. His papers and documents were everywhere. I am perfectionist, and I need an ordered space to think. My husband doesn't care. I was frustrated when I saw his thing all over the place, dirty mugs in the sink." Another source of conflict was the postponed in vitro procedure. He didn't understand that I was so afraid to get COVID that I didn't want to meet with people. The respondent emphasized that long-term isolation led to some emotional and psychological disorder. During the lockdown, I began to feel anxious. I kept thinking about all the worst-case scenarios, and I couldn't sleep. My husband thought I overacted. I felt not understood, so the depression increased. But the woman also mentions that she relays, she tried to cope with the difficult situation with contact with the nature. During the pandemic, I realized I had always wanted to live in the countryside. Sometimes we went to the forest to relax and walk mask-free. Just today, I noticed that we all here mask-free, and this is fantastic. Cooperation with employer. My employer understood my situation, my anxiety and fear of interacting with people. They let me take an unpaid leave. Remote work was not an option in my profession. The respondent decided to introduce some changes in her closet environment. Previously ignored aesthetic side of it became the priority. While sitting at home, I realized that all our windows look out on the walls. Tightly packed buildings, one house right by another. I decided to do something with it. I didn't move the walls, but I bought lots of plants and changed green curtains. Finally, the respondent emphasized that one shouldn't waste time and enjoy the moment. She said, "I have learned to enjoy small things and appreciate the power of peace and quiet. Where I live now, it is much safer and life is more predictable. I can have impact on my well-being. I have learned to appreciate every moment and enjoy it. I can also help other people, other women be beautiful. It is a pretty good future prospect." And to sum up, the respondents have developed mechanisms to cope with the challenging reality. The pandemic released in them the unexpected potential of strength and resources. As they faced the difficulties, they realized that they could fight for themselves and take care of themselves and their family. And let me close with the words of the 51-year-old respondent, Maria, whose life broke apart completely during the pandemic and was rebuilt based on new value. She said, I realized that life is so unpredictable, so fragile, that hardly anything depends on us. I decided that I will not waste my time on dreaming, but I will act instead. I will do that what I had been thinking of, but had postponed it for later. I decided to act. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jolanta, for coming and for telling us all these personal experiences. And I think at the beginning, we were a little bit afraid of this focus group, but now we can really see the results and the human factor therein. So I would like to invite Ingrid Shurova from the Czech Republic to please hold your presentation, and she will tell us of her personal experiences from this country. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ingrid Shurova from Prague, from Business and Professional Women Czech Republic Association. Thank you to Mrs. Ferenczi, Andrea, for your invitation to the project Women, Families and Careers, and an opportunity to join this nice conference. Thank you, Andrea, once more. Business and Professional Women Czech Republic is a part of international organization, worldwide organization, Business and Professional Women International. Our organization in Czech Republic was established 12 years ago by our president, Lenka Šťastná, with her idea, when women come together, they can do incredible things. Mission in our organization is inspiration, support, and connection. What we do, Business and Professional Women Czech Republic connects active women in order to support economic independence of women. We mediate women standards. We lead a lead campaign for equal pay and long-term support the topic of the position and influence of women in our society. How we do that? We coordinate and participate on many local and international projects. Our own project as Equal Pay Day, a big conference and mentoring day. We coordinate and participate on project of Erasmus, on Visegrad funds, Central European initiatives, and other. We support also Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, with the support of US Embassy in Czech Republic. And finally, we are also in support of with Women Empowering Principles for an implementation in corporates and companies. So back to our conference and project inputs. We follow project rules, focus groups, and cases. And our focus groups. We had 4 focus groups: mothers with children, 2 women, aged around 40, with university degree, live in the city, self-employed, and one with 1 kid, and the second one with 2 kids. The group B was a woman planning a family. It was business owner, university degree, live in the city, and young lady around 30. The focus group, women 50 plus, is a single woman, university degree, self-employed, and lives in the city. And group D, woman living in the countryside, is a woman age around 40, with kids, university degree, business owner with a farm. I moderated the session with project question area. What we could listen to: many sensitive stories with high feeling and fears. It was an enormous, stressful situation for women caregivers to take care for kids, families, husbands, partners, parents. It was stressful for them to manage a work properly and to find where is an end of working hours and where is a beginning of a personal time, if any. Many connections have been lost, many lives. Our families, kids, friends faced new situation, unknown, unpredictable, and stressful. We could see profound impact of the psyche of children, unfortunately. Mothers reported that still their kids need to sleep with light. They are in fear from unknown situation. They need psychology helps. They need antidepressants. And they need big, big support. Our kids face big and massive media broadcasting negative news. And unfortunately, our kids, they faced new, unknown, stressful situation with war in Ukraine. What we can say as a conclusion, our women, they said, we're really missing ordinary joy to look forward to. We forgot what is look forward to daily happiness, small things, to plan nice things, to plan a trip. And they really feel loneliness, still today. But to not be only negative, what was positive, and we could see strengthening the community, strengthening the family, and also planning kids, planning new life, and planning new opportunities. And it was very nice for the conclusion of the discussion with our women, with our members of our organization. So finally, I can finish with our mission, that really what is very serious and important for us: inspiration, connection, support. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the Business and Professional Women organization in the Czech Republic. This is already the third project on which we work together, and thank you so much that I can always, or we can always count on you, and I think this cooperation will continue. And now, another COVID victim will come up. I'm sorry, but she cannot be here with us. Ewelina from Slovakia. She would have liked to come very much, but in Slovakia, the COVID restrictions are very strict, and she couldn't come, so she sent us a video. So let's take a look at this, and let's hope for them that they'd be able to leave the quarantine as soon as possible. Ewelina Kondasova, a Businesswomen and Manager Szövetség nevében.
Dear Andrea, thank you very much for the floor. Dear ladies, my name is Ewelina Kondasova, and on behalf of Association of Businesswomen and Managers from Slovakia, we would like to thank you, the lead partner from Hungary, the Association for Women's Career Development, and also to Polish and Czech partners for cooperation and for the opportunity.
Elnézést kérünk, egy kis...
Sorry, we have a little bit of a technical problem. It's a bit of a technical problem. So before we solve that, I don't know if Julia Fodorné is here from the Red Cross. She is the chairperson of Vöröskereszt, but she's not yet here with us. But let's go on. And let's invite Katalin Balla. Personal presence is very important, so she will be our next speaker then. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, NOE, the National Association of Large Families, has been presented several times in several places, but today I'd like to give you a brief overview about our organization, and then, without trying to be complete, I'd like to share with you a couple of examples to show you that during the pandemic in the past few years, what we did differently, what new challenges we had to face, and how we have solved the problems that arose, and what would be the tasks ahead of us. Because from one crisis situation, we had to go to another because of the Russian-Ukrainian war. I have 3 children, and although they are very young adults, through them I became a member of this organization, which was organized in 1987. So this year it will be 35 years old. The constitution of the association back then set out the objectives 35 years ago, which have been enforced ever since. There are 4 of them. One of them is motherhood, education in honor of life and motherhood. The second is strengthening the sense of responsibility for marriage and future generations. The third one is representing the special interests of large families. And the fourth one is organizing large families into communities that know and help each other. How can you be a member? Those who raise in their household at least 3 children, or they have already raised them, and they agree with the goals of the association and participate in the programs. Currently, we have a little over 15,000 member families nationwide, which, if multiplied by an average of 5, because mom, dad, and the 3 kids, show that the membership is very significant. It is no wonder that we are considered to be the largest non-governmental organization in Hungary, Our headquarters are in Budapest, and there are 6 different regional headquarters in the country, which bring together our groups or association. From those, we have more than 250. I am the head of the 14th District Budapest unit, and with 150 families. They pay an annual membership fee, and we have government funds and EU grants and other donations to fund our activities. Let me give you a couple of figures regarding NOE, or that is our association. Just a second, please. What am I doing wrong? Okay, now I have it. In Europe, 30% of families have 3 or more children. This is about 8.5 million families. These are figures from 2 years ago. 211,000 large families live in Hungary, about 9% of them members of NOE. This means about 15 member families. NOE has the largest number of member families among all family organizations. There are 700,000 children raised in large families. More than half of them are under 15 of age, and this is about 20% of all Hungarian children. And last year, 450 children were born with NOE families. There are 250 member organizations in the country, and more than 2,000 volunteers help us run the country. Almost 4,000 discounted options we have in our large family card. There are 70 to 80 different programs organized by our member organizations in the country, and nearly 500 cultural events they could visit free. There are about 1,000 or 1,500 of those who require legal support. So we can say, and based on the 35 years of experience, we can say that NOE's name sounds very good at home and abroad. Our opinion matters, and without us, no European family organization is complete. And we are seen as an example by smaller, less well-organized, large family organizations in many countries. So this is by way of introduction. In 2020 and 2021, during the pandemic period, what were the changes that we had to live through, and what were the good practices we developed? Due to the virus outbreak, we provided the workers with the conditions to work from home office, for which we made computer improvements to operate the NOE secretariat and provided as much infrastructure as possible for counseling, such as legal aid, family education, and so on. Despite the uncertainty caused by the pandemic, I think NOE handled the situation well. A lot of programs were missed live. A lot of times we just moved to online space. Our international room for maneuver also changed. Discussions were done on the internet, but we could increase our membership nevertheless, and new associations were also formed in the country. You are not alone. We take care of each other. With this title, we gave name to the idea that the family is the greatest retaining force. On April 6, 2021, members of NOE worldwide were signing the association anthem, we're singing the the association's anthem, reassuring Hungarians here in Hungary and beyond the border, from Alaska to Slovenia, they are not alone in trouble. So let me show you in 1 minute of a video, if we manage. Family is the biggest retaining force. Thank you very much. On behalf of the large families, for Hungarians, this tune is very familiar. Now, there is a program called Book for Home. Several thousand books were distributed to needy families. Because of the pandemic, a lot of books were left on the shelves in the stores and in warehouses as well. The books were purchased with state support and have been distributed to several parts of the country over the past 2 years, including with noise help. Among the books included youth novels, volumes of poetry, and words of world literature. Children's books were also included, but only those which were written by Hungarian authors. In 2020, cultural institutions kept in touch with the public, including NOAA families, mostly online. For some reason I can, oh, here it is. Now, the actors of cultural life were not prepared for a period of quarantine either, because everything happened so suddenly, but they soon found a way to smuggle creative moments and happy moments into people's everyday lives at home. So we also had lots of online programs sent to the member of the cultural list, sometimes a tune, sometimes online puppet show or virtual exhibition. Some of them were theater recordings or concerts, which were made available free of charge by the cultural institution. As this lockdown started to ease, we concluded that the virtual space gave us a good opportunity in times of need, and online culture was nice, but in spite of all the efforts, everybody wanted to have personal experience. In August 2021, it was already possible to reopen musical rehearsals, stadium concerts, etc., to which NOAA families were also invited. Unfortunately, as we went into the fall, the pandemic had to impose ever-increasing restrictions. Fortunately, many were already working by then, but again, there was little opportunity to meet the audience. Many institutions used this period to transform, test, and gradually open up for the following year. Unfortunately, NOAA's options for discounted offers were narrowed somewhat, as the loss of revenue for cultural operators during the pandemic has been made up by an audience that was already very hungry for personal experiences. Thus, our older partners were able to offer us far fewer free or discounted tickets, or the discount was not as large. Some of the families of our association were still invited to some shows. As regards to the discounts related to our membership card, we lost quite a number of partners, nearly 120, because their opportunities were very much restricted by the pandemic regarding those who offered the discount and those who used them. However, in 2020, the online discounts were introduced, so through the link on our website, we can offer different discounts. So you can introduce yourself, put up pictures. There are 300 settlements where we have partners providing discounts from 50 to 5% of a discount. It is very transparent, and you can screen for the different counties. If you, for example, have a holiday in one place, then you want to find a restaurant, then here you can find the restaurants where you can get a discount for a large family. And you can use any kind of mobile tool for that. Our association in the past year got almost 100 automatic canning machines. Our goal was to get many Hungarian fruit and vegetable processed locally by our large families, so we can get it to our member families. And if they live in large cities, it's much more difficult for them to access these. So we managed to hand over 1,200 bottles of love to families, and all the different parts of the country joined forces in this program called the Tastes of Love. However, 2021 overrode our goals a bit here too, because 4 of our associations suffered heavy losses last year when they lost their leaders because of the coronavirus. We wanted to express our love by 2,300 bottles of love that we share in our grief. And we wanted to indicate that you can count on your friends during trouble. And last year we organized another, we helped another organization, the single-parent families. This is about building a community and healthy eating, but we also wanted to show that they can count on us. Keeping pace with the changes, we improved our website from the user and the operator side as well. In 2021, we again announced the Angelic Charity Call, the Angelic Parcel Service, HES. At the time, most of the families were in a very difficult situation. A lot of them wanted to find new families, new jobs, and all the families very often got into quarantine. Sometimes they lost their loved ones, especially in those families where, besides the psychological loss, they also had to struggle with financial problems because they lost the breadwinner of the family. As a matter of fact, sometimes we had to help 2 or 3 families at a time. In November, during the Advent time, we also had to help. Altogether, we managed to help 253 families. Noe Phone is a telephone and online service at Noe that is designed to provide authentic and up-to-date information on legislation and to address the complexity of individual and personal issues in a personalized manner, providing free assistance, guidance, and solution. In 2020 and 2021, there was an increased number of labor law issues, and because of the extraordinary legal order, and we had to help them too. There were a lot of individual questions regarding housing subsidy and credit moratorium, or loan moratorium, and the situation of parents forced to stay at home during the pandemic because of the children, regarding online education tools and free child meals. As regarding the suggestions and recommendations that we received, we forwarded them to the authorities. Now we have a couple of positive results also. During the pandemic, the child care benefits which expired was extended. Now, kindergartens were not opened on the call basis. We increased the amount of job, and CHED was also relieved. And also the housing support refinements, increasing the minimum of orphan care fees and refund of income tax paid for children in 2021, and so on. We have launched several tenders or grant schemes in the last 2 years in connection with the pandemic. Because the life of the families changed a lot, they couldn't go to creche or nursery school, and children had to parents had to stay at home. And because of the endangerment of grandparents, the relationship changed there too. So everybody had to learn this new way of life. Despite of this very sad circumstances, there were some really positive moments also. We had a photo and video scheme that we launched. What we learned about each other, our own selves, about our children, about our parents. There were 101 entries to the Family Together competition. So we had another one, what I learned about my family stories in a virus situation. That was a title, how parents could help with school and homeworks. What is it like when in an extremely large family with 6 or 9, 10 children? How is it when they are all home? Can daddy cook? And so on. We can have some really funny moments then too, and we make a volume out of these writings. This is what you can see in the picture. This will be the 5th picture. 5th volume. We also had a 3rd scheme, If I Didn't Have a Family. It's a kind of fiction contest. What life would be without my family, if you can imagine it at all. Young people also wrote, and those who already have a family. And just one last sentence regarding our current task in 2022. Even though we are still at the beginning of the year, unfortunately, we are right in the midst of another crisis, and that is the Ukrainian-Russian war. We are talking about the refugees, 90% of whom are women and children. And very often, these are broken families, needy families whose suffering and needs cannot be left without a word. And large charities carry out very coordinated work, but our job here is not only to collect donations, but also to steer benevolent private actions in one direction, because a lot of people offer, for example, accommodations to the families, and they take them away. But if they don't report at the entry points or with the charity organizations or with the disaster management, then they considered to be tourists with the applicable rules, and they are not considered to be as refugees. And after a certain while, they have to leave the country. And there are a lot of Roma families coming over to Subcarpathia, and they are taken out of their own communities, and they might camp with 50 or even 150 people, and they are very much very vulnerable. So we have a very targeted job here to do. So we make sure that volunteers are in enough supply. I wish you very successful work in your own work. I'd like to thank Andrea Ferenczi and the Hungarian Women's Career Development Association for this conference, and thank you for inviting me from nowhere. And I wish you all, and this is why what I wanted to emphasize, that I wish you very good health in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. An old standing friend is nowhere with us. They have lots of programs, so that's why this presentation was a bit lengthier, but thank you very much. It was very useful. There is a little bit of a change because the Red Cross's president has not arrived yet, and I suppose she has plenty to do nowadays. And now I'd like to invite Eva Horvatné from the Győr-Sopron County Chamber Women's Club. She's been a long-standing strategic partner. I don't know if I've mentioned it, that the Hungarian Women's Career Development Association works not only with the Visegrad partners, but also with the Large Families Association, the Hungarian Red Cross, and the Győr-Sopron County Chamber Women Entrepreneurs Club, because this way a lot of knowledge and values are put all together. But I don't want to tell you this all, because we will talk about it at the end. But one of our most important cooperating partners here is the Family Friendly Center. Is a very important partner, and the director here is with us. But now we have Eva Horvatné, who cannot be here with us personally, but she also sent us a video. I'd like to welcome all the participants of the conference on behalf of the Győr-Sopron County Chamber of Trade and Commerce, on behalf of the Women's Club, on the fifth wave, towards the end of the fifth wave of the world pandemic, which concern, and in the days of the war that broke out in Europe, which concerns all of us. The thematic of the conference concentrates on the first one, and in this video presentation, I will focus on this too. My short opinion on this is being presented here, and I suppose that all the problems that arose in all of us' lives, but I suppose that you do go into the details in your discussions with attendance. Now, at least 64% of women's businesses state all over the world that the COVID pandemic had a very negative impact on them. In general, we could say that in the countries of the Visegrad 4, the least strict measures, except for the first wave, were taken in Hungary, with all the benefits and unfortunately with the very sad negative aspects as well. But the purpose was to retain the economy. Now, regarding the Visegrad 4, in parallel to this, in Hungary, we had the least of the supporting of the wages because of the pandemic, according to the EU data. and which made it very difficult for the different sector, especially regarding the labor market and business development, including women entrepreneurs and their businesses. Available international data indicate very well that the Visegrad 4 countries, from among them, all 3 other countries' wage supports are different than ours. In 2021, comprehensive data are still to be seen, but the data from 2020 published in 2021, there were no significant changes. From among EU member states, 13th is Slovakia, 14th is Czech Republic, 21st is Poland, and 26th is Hungary regarding wage subsidies based on 2020 data. Now, independently from the gender of the business leaders, we could say that the most significant impact in this period was suffered by the women regarding the careers and their works, or the digital education or lack of it, and the creches and the nursery school still feel sometimes. So this is where we had the most impacts. I don't believe that there is a grandmother or a mother among us, among women entrepreneurs, who could say that these measures would not have had a lot of difficulties and losses in their businesses, in their personal, regarding their personal lives or their employees. Now, this is the factor which hit women entrepreneurs a lot as against men entrepreneurs. Because of the pandemic, the unpredictable economic environment forced people to have at least as few employees as possible. And if an employee falls out of work because they had to stay at home with the children, it's very difficult to replace them, even if temporarily. Switching to home office very often, the digital education, which the extra jobs or the extra tasks related to digital education were carried out by women mostly. And this was a tremendous difficulty for women, and not only from the economic point of view. The in-attendance kind of work in women's businesses, well, in Hungary we don't have estimated data or surveys yet, but in lack of them, every women entrepreneur knows exactly all the extra difficulties and risks posed by them. These extra burdens outside of Hungary, of course, in the other countries were also present among women entrepreneurs. Now, the risks and difficulties caused by the pandemic, women entrepreneurs and women leaders of businesses whose businesses survived the negative economic impact, as compared to the male-led businesses, they needed a whole lot more energy put into it, so in order to reach the same results. Even though it would be possible to assess only later on how much all this helped the local businesses, and towards the end of the fifth phase, we cannot consider the pandemic as history yet, but on the whole, we can see that in the other Visegrad countries, they received a whole lot more support than in Hungary. Because of the lack of wage support, all the businesses were affected. And in addition, digital education, quarantine, and because of other things, children, grandchildren had to be taken care of, and the women had to stay at home with them. So despite of all this, in Hungary, there was just one significant program launched during the pandemic in order to help women's businesses, and that is the so-called Minden program. the amount of which was the European Economic Area and Norwegia Regional Cooperation Fund. These were the organizations that created it. Besides the women entrepreneurs, the target group of the projects were businesses where at least 51% was the women's share, and at least one woman is included among the project of the managers. However, even in this case, support was given mostly for training and career development, and not as much to help ease the extra burden on women entrepreneurs. So the pandemic, we could say, did not help in to reverse the trend in case of women, that while women make up 52% of the total European population, from among all the EU businesses and business people, they make up only 1/3 of them. In Hungary, according to the Women's Entrepreneurs Index, the share of women entrepreneurs is nearly 28%. Now, women owners or shareholders or businesses led by women, well, in this regard, according to the latest data, we are in the 12th place worldwide, which is a very good place. However, the picture is different than the statistics. Those participating in education and working in the healthcare sector, they are the ones who bring this up. Now, the trend that in case of businesses employing less than 10 people, that's where we find most women. In businesses where, just as I mentioned before, there is no economic reserves to fall back on during the pandemic. Now, regarding the different sectors, the most hit among the sectors, women entrepreneurs were very much hit, because based on the Central Statistical Office in the service sector, that's where we have the most women, where 55.31% of all the employees are women. These were the ones who were most impacted by the pandemic. Now, in industry, more supported during the pandemic is the participation of women is only about 28%, and in the agricultural activities, 24.31% is the share of women. Summing it all up, the Visegrad 4, perhaps in all of the Visegrad 4 countries, but in Hungary certainly, we could say that women entrepreneurs, the women company owners and the company managers, women company managers, regarding the economic impacts of the pandemic, they had to stand their ground in a very difficult course, while the other restricting impacts of the pandemic, as compared to their male counterparts, they had to do their job in a much more difficult condition. I thank you very much for your attention. I wish you good health, peace, and very successful work. Thank you very much. Now we have a coffee break. Those who are here with us on site. But Ewelina Kondásova's presentation will be shown to you during the break, and it's very important that her video will be also put on YouTube. So this will complete the program for today, and so everybody can see it, and you can go back to it later on. And now we have a little bit of a rest, especially the interpreter, who is a very good friend of us, and I'd like to thank her very much. That I think we've been working together for about 20 years, and her name is Ildikó Modláné Görgényi, and she has been interpreting simultaneously this entire program on her own. So let's give her a round of applause. So now we have a little bit of a break, just as we have in our program. Unfortunately, the chairperson of the Red Cross told me that unfortunately she cannot come, but I think we can understand that now in this situation. Now we will continue at the 15:30 hours. Thank you very much.
social contacts and isolation, because before they were very active and this was not possible. Another group of people, they were women over 40 or 50, the women over 50. They also claimed and said that impact on family was different in their case because they have not, or they have either no children or teenagers, so they didn't meet with situation that they have to work on the same time and be educator or teacher. On the other hand, they said that it really depended on the situations with, within the family and with employers. They mean that situation with employees on the way, that either they were working from home or they could go to their work, to partly work there. And situation at home, it has impact also similar as with another woman. Depends on family relations. If the relations were good before the pandemic, they can with good communication and cooperation, and although there were a big isolation, that cooperation and relations were not with the tense. Otherwise, when they were not good before, might be some misunderstanding and problems. What was very interesting in this group, our interviewed women mentioned that the impact on pandemic was not mostly on them as a woman, a working woman, but mostly on their children. What does it mean? Because it means that a lot of women in this age over 50 has teenagers, and because of closed schools and closed courses and other activities, their children were isolated and were without any contact. They said that these young people started to be frustrated, very angry, and very sad. And they were more influenced by this bad mood from these teenagers, from their children, as from COVID as on the pandemic. On the other hand, they also said that that women over 50 used to have either good jobs or manager positions or their own businesses. Due to the fact that during the COVID, a lot of services or a lot of jobs were closed, they also, some of them had problems with their business, because if everything was closed, they could not offer their services. That's why they feel pandemic like it has direct impact on their jobs, and they either to close down their business or to find another possibility how to do another type of business. They were trying to find inspiration and maybe another type of business. So according to their view and experience, it depends on themselves how to look on the pandemic, if positive or negative, and maybe they were trying to think more positive to finding another way of functioning. There is also another group, the last one, and there are women from rural areas, so it means women who live in countryside. At the beginning, these women wanted to say that they choose to live on countryside because they want to. They choose to live there because they do not want or didn't want to live in the big cities. They wanted to be in a quiet place. For some people, maybe in some kind of isolation. So far away from culture, far away from people. They just wanted to have their house, their garden, and maybe forest nearby. So they choose this. Of course, they mentioned that the pandemic has impact on their lives also, but depends if they have children or not have children, because if they have children, also closed schools and kindergartens has impact on their lives because they had to work, and also being a teacher on one hand, But on the second hand, they didn't feel so much frustrated, or they didn't think that pandemic has impact on their lives regarding the social contacts, because they wanted to be in their own, with their own families. They said that in these maybe tense or not very easy times, they used to do some walking, to go to forest, and they find a positive energy on this. So impact on pandemic, they see mostly as a new way how to think others and how to find another way how to survive. At the end of our presentation, all women were saying that although the pandemic came and we all were unprepared, also government were unprepared, people, employers, so all of us have to think how to do things another, how to find positives, although that there were a lot of losses, there were a lot of situations that could not be changed, although that the pandemic has impact on lives and mental lives, but still they're thinking that if we want, we can think another way, and the situation will change in positive thinking, in positive way. Dear Andrea, thank you very much for the floor. Dear ladies, my name is Ewelina, and on behalf of Association of Businesswomen and Managers from Slovakia, we would like to thank you, the lead partner from Hungary, the Association for Women's Career Development, and also to Polish and Czech partners for cooperation and for the opportunity to take part in this project, who is financed by the Visegrad Fund. Our association is a non-profit and non-governmental institution that promotes women managers, women entrepreneurs, women in leading positions. Our core activities are connections, supporting, and inspirations, and we propose also helping hand to women startups, and we support family businesses. We have longer years of experience in projects, and we are very happy that we could part in this project. For our women, we propose various and tailor-made activities, educational activities, and networking activities. One of project activity was interview with selected women, which were target groups in our project. There were 4 target groups. One was women with children. Second were women who plan family. There was also women over 40 and women who lived in countryside, rural women. So let's go to our research and to our interview. So the first group of women with children, we asked these women about their experiences and opinions, and of course impact on pandemic on their personal life, work-life balance, their relations in the family, of course relation to the work, and their feelings and situation which they lived during the pandemic. Here at the beginning, we would like to say that the pandemic in Slovakia was really unexpected, and a lot of people and women were very unprepared. They start at the beginning in March 2019. They had a fear at the beginning and feel very, some of them were frustrated because they didn't know what will be and how long it will be. Also because entrepreneurs were not prepared, companies were not prepared. At that time, in March, situation was following. All schools and all schools and kindergartens were closed, and women had the feeling that this has a big impact on their work-life balance, private life, and also working life. What happened? Suddenly, from one day to another, when educational activities was closed, women were teachers, educators, and on the other hand, there were also women who had to work. Some of them say that they had very tense and very crucial situations, and they were very sad. And due this situation, they were thinking how to do their businesses, because for them was very hard to combine working at the same time and education of children. Also, our interviewers mentioned that some maybe hidden problems were on the daily program, because many people forgot that there are also household jobs which would be done, and these jobs was also to be done, and it was hidden before the pandemic. Due to the situation that women had to think how to continue, and how to do their jobs, how to work, and how to do educational activities. Some of them were thinking if they should calm down their activities, or maybe the entrepreneurs had the feeling that they should maybe finish their work for a couple of months, because also situation was that all shops and services were closed, and this has a big impact on them. Women said that it really depends on the families, because if they have a good relations, they could somehow manage it. Also, they could manage the working and education with children. Let's go to the second target groups. It was women who plan a family. This group of women mentioned that the situation was a bit different as by the women with children. It's normal because they had no children. They were just expecting to have children, so they didn't have the situation that they have to reconcile their work-life balance, working life, and time spent with children. So they said that they were very happy that they haven't met with this situation. On the other hand, they mentioned that maybe for them, the pandemic has impact on their personal lives, but depends on family and on their relations, because people were isolated and really depended on situation with employers. If both partners were working at home or could work from home offices some days, so the relations were depending on the family better or maybe worse. What they found as an impact on pandemic on their life was losing of social contacts and isolation, because before they were very active and this was not possible. Another group of people, they were women over 40 or 50, the women over 50. They also claimed and said that impact on family was different in their case, because they have either no children or teenagers, so they didn't meet with situation that they have to work on the same time and be educator or teacher. On the other hand, they said that it really depended on the situations within the family and with employers. They mean that the situation with employees on the way, that either they were working from home or they could go to their work, to partly work there. And situation at home, it has impact also similar as with another woman. Depends on family relations. If the relations were good before the pandemic, they can with good communication and cooperation, and although there were a big isolation, that cooperation and relations were not with the tense. Otherwise, when they were not good before, might be some misunderstanding and problems. What was very interesting in this group are women. I interviewed the woman mentioned that the impact on pandemic was not mostly on them as a woman, a working woman, but mostly on their children. What does it mean? Because it means that a lot of women in this age over 50 has teenagers, and because of closed schools and closed courses and other activities, their children were isolated and were without any contact. they said that these young people started to be frustrated, very angry, and very sad. And they were more influenced by this bad mood from these teenagers, from their children, as from COVID, as on the pandemic. On the other hand, they also said that that women over 50 used to have either good jobs or manager positions or their own businesses, due to the fact that during
Kezdünk!
We are starting. We are starting. So, welcome back. And I'd like to welcome those who are just joining us online. And we hope that those who've seen our program, they liked it and liked the topic too. And now we are just after coffee break. And in the meantime, we took a look at the video by Ewelina Kondesova. It will be also put on the YouTube channel. And from now on, I'd like to say farewell from this panel. And I introduce Sütő Nagy Kata, who is a business developer and consultant, and she will moderate the events from now on. I'd like to hand over to her. Thank you. In the second half of the afternoon, we will present to you the international best practices or good practices, and perhaps we can learn from each other in this region so that we can make women's situation as good as possible, and we can kind of find a balance, a better balance between work and private life. Now, in this conversation, this discussion, we will identify the problems and challenges, and we will try to offer some solutions. The idea is that we don't have to come up with something totally new. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we are here together in this V4 that we can join forces and we can get to know each other's good practices and use them in this region, and to find as efficient of a solution in this region as possible. The first best practice or good practice that we want to show to you is the Hungarian market. The Hungarian Women Development Association for years has called for application for best Hungarian women's workplace, not only from the business sector, but also from the public sector. And now Katalin Hajos will show you the whole system of this scheme, and then we can hear the winners as well. Thank you ever so much. So I am a long-standing I'd like to talk about the long-standing project of the Hungarian Women's Career Development Association, and that is the best women's workplace. The first time we called for applications in 27. So the apropos was that the year of equal opportunities for all. Now the purpose of the initiative was to point out the equal equalities of women in employment, and besides that, the economic need for women's employment. Now, every year in Hungary, there are two categories in which people or companies can win an award. There are the one categories for employers who employ more than 250 employees, and those who have less. In the panel, there are equal opportunities, labor market experts, and gender equality experts who award the prize. Since 2007, more than 100 companies have received this award. The award, large Hungarian companies, Hungarian small and medium-sized companies, government agencies, local governments, and so on. During the 15 years, we carry out surveys among the employees, and we have an experience of more than 20,000 questionnaires filled out about women's employment and what kind of opinions and solutions and possibilities there are. Now, the scheme. The applications are filed by the management of the company, but it is very important to fill out the employees' questionnaires, which are, of course, anonymous. And that's how they are filled out and processed. The prize itself, the award itself, was founded so that the companies and the employers, good practices could be presented in Hungarian and international fora. Ever since 2020, the pandemic urged a lot of employers to basically rethink their employers' practices. And when the 2020 scheme was evaluated, these aspects were basically taken into account. What are these aspects based on which the decision is made about which employers receive this award? First, we look at the given workplace in a complex manner, the way they are active, and we took lots of aspects into account. Among them are included the representation of special women's groups, for example, with new graduates, how they are integrated into the market. And then a very important aspect is women who come back after maternity leave and what situation they find themselves in and how they are continuously employed. Supporting the career of women over 50 from the employer is also a very important aspect. We take into account whether the opportunities for women living with disabilities have been improving or not in the given workplace, what actions they take to help women's health in the workplace, what is the proportion of women in leading positions. Does the employer give an opportunity to part-time jobs or remote job? What do they do for the balance of work and private lives and family? What skill developments do they offer? Do they organize family programs? Do they support childcare institutions? So on this slide, you can see lots of company logos, but there are a whole lot more who are not included because we couldn't fit all the 100 on a single slide, or on several slides even. But a very important point is that we have prized companies from all the different sectors, from trade and commerce through services and production sector, education, and the social institutions everywhere. Now, applications come in from all over the country, and not only companies, but different institutions also apply. Now, regarding the prize or the award winners in 2020, they are the ones over here. The first prize was given to the Semmelweis University. We will hear more about them. The second prize went to Tesco. The third prize went shared to the Budapest Methodology Social Center and its institutions. Now, in the category of less than 250 employees, the first prize is the WATS Family and Child Welfare Center. The second one is from the Sziget-Szekmondos Tatarszkó, and the third one is Fáborland and Matej. A special award was given to the Potri Boglárka Nursery School. Every year, the award gets a lot of media attention. 2020 was especially very important for the media. The most important public service and commercial media included Kossuth Radio, MTV, the Daily.hu, the Family.hu, and naturally all the winners put their achievements up on their own social media sites, and also the regional media cover them. So this is what I wanted to say about the background of this whole scheme, and I'm very happy to hand over to two of our winners. The first one is, okay, I go back. No, I don't. So anyway, first I give the floor to the representative of SOTE, that is the Semmelweis University, to the deputy head of cabinet of the rector, that is the director of the university, Kata Püski Adonicsné, and then to the head of the company Karsai Holding. So she will tell us, they will tell us what were the different measures and steps why they actually deserve the awards. I'd like to greet everyone, those who are personally present at the conference and those who are following us online. And thank you very much for this opportunity so that we can show this whole story, present to you this whole story, what we have had in the past couple of years at our university. Even though the Semmelweis University was not only a victim of the pandemic, like in most employers' cases, but we were in the forefront in managing the pandemic in Hungary. Those who live in Hungary, they must have heard, I'm sure, in the different media, in the different services, that the university appeared all over and how much part the university took in this heroic struggle. There was a huge work done in caring for the patients. Luckily, by today, it is dropping now, its intensity. It called for huge reorganization, tremendous overload of work regarding the employees. Daily, we had an operational staff meeting, and I myself participate every single day at this. And naturally, healthcare workers had to face the increased risk of illness because they were in the front line. This was one part of the participation in managing the pandemic. There were lots of educational and social level or society level information campaigns. We participated in lots of different platforms. And we coordinated the regional level, several millions of screening and tests, and several hundreds of thousands of vaccinations administered were done by the staff of our university. And a national research project was coordinated in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic, but I could go on and on. Even in this short list, from this you can see the different burden and workload that the employees had to face. Now, the university employs 10,000 employees, so it's a huge employer. 70% of our employees are women. And instead of letting them go so that they should be staying at home with their children during the pandemic, we had to rely even more on them in healthcare. So we couldn't just let them go. And at the social level, we needed their increased efforts, while, of course, the impact of the pandemic had just as much of a negative effect on them as on anybody else living in Hungary or anywhere else. Here, the question arises at this point that how is it possible that in these extremely difficult and critical times, the Semmelweis University won the Best Women's Workplace Award, and at this very same time, we also got the certificate of family-friendly workplace, which is supported by a very significant audit, and we are very much very nervous about how we managed to comply with all the requirements, but we managed. So if I wanted to tell you how it was possible, I would be the only one speaking the rest of the day, but I just like to highlight the most important points. On this slide, what you can see on the left side, what I already told you, that how big of a workload it was on the employees. On the right side, you can see that we as employers, what we tried to give and provide, and not only seemingly, it was not only just a proxy kind of measure, but it was real support and assistance that they really needed. Now, temporary home office work right here in the first place, in certain jobs it was possible, but those who worked in healthcare, it was not possible. Here, childcare, organizing childcare, that was the most burning issue because children were sent home from schools and nursery schools, and the mothers working in healthcare could not stay at home with them because we had to count on their work. And what I'd like to say now is that this was not a simple child care or child supervision, but from starting 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening, we provided supervision to children. So we tried to take into account the working times, the working hours, from small ages, from nursery school until the end of the elementary school age. We provided supervision to them, and we provided online education to them also, employing separate teachers. And we had small groups of 5 of children. Every morning, a doctor examined them, and those who were ill, we managed to provide to them supervision too. So it was a very different kind of system that we used than what was usual, so that we could make sure that the healthcare staff could go on working. And we also took care of transportation because the university is huge with lots of different venues, and we took care that the children were transported to the place, to the right place where they were supervised. And the other big job that I'd like to highlight here, and it arose right away as soon as COVID broke out, and that was a kind of crisis support, which had a lot of different forms and aspects. Now, it's the mental support and assistance that we found very important for those who were working in the front line. We established a helpline 24/7. It was a crisis line that was operated. It was, and it still is operational for psychological consultation. Group mental hygienic workshops were accessible online, and there were written documents, stress management, and special COVID care-related stress situations were discussed, how they could be resolved. And so from this you can see that mental support, well, we tried to interpret it in a very specific way so that everybody would get real help and real assistance because they actually need it. And in addition, because children-related problems are mostly up for women and also problems related to the elderly, and they had to work. So that's why we set up a legal aid service, and a welfare crisis fund was also created so that to be able to manage COVID deaths, or when, for example, one of the breadwinners would die, or we could help anybody from among our employees who was in a very difficult personal situation. The third issue that I'd like to highlight here, and which is very specific, and that was the health preservation and health development kind of program during the COVID pandemic. All throughout, there was an opportunity for our employees to participate in online exercise, which mentally helps our employees. Health screenings, a whole line of health screening were launched, especially, a lot of them especially aimed at women, and we encourage our women to participate at them. We provided health care especially. We provided special funds for that, so that actually they themselves could pay attention to their own selves and not only to the patients that turn to them. So it became a kind of slogan for us that at the Semmelweis University we care about each other, because it's evident that we care for other people. We always care for the students, for the patients, but that we care for each other and for ourselves as well. That's very important. And there were a couple of other things in this list, like, for example, we tried to support transportation. We had a gender equal opportunities plan prepared in this period, and this whole family-friendly university program developed, as we call it. It's a separate unit already at the university. And these couple of things that I highlighted here, these were the secrets behind the fact that in this very difficult situation, the university managed to pay attention to these two. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now let's listen to a good practice from the business life. Eva Kish will speak about a company from a sector which is basically a man's world, how they managed to create the best situation for women employees. Good afternoon to you all. I'd like to greet all those who are present here and also those who follow us online. My name is Eva Kish, and I am the general manager of Karsai Holding Corporation. It's a great honor to me to be here, especially on a special day, because it's an ingenious idea to have a women's conference on the International Day of Women. So thank you very much to be able to be here. But if you look at my presentation, you can see a question mark. How could a conductor be on in my presentation? By the time I finish what I want to say, you will understand why this question mark is here. Just very briefly, may I show you where I'd come from, what environment I'd come from. Karsai Holding ZRT is a holding headquartered in Székesfehérvár. We have 8 member companies, 7 of them in Hungary and 1 in Transylvania, where we employ Hungarians. We are all producing plastics. They say it's a masculine kind of industry. Besides manufacturing plastics, there are different segments where we produce parts, like the automotive industry, food industry, food packaging industry, like yogurt cups or the deep frozen packaging materials in pharmaceutical industry for vitamins and all kinds of laboratory equipment, plastic, pipettes and whatever, or in cosmetic industry, for example, or business packaging materials for shampoos and creams and so on. So everything that is plastic, we manufacture in our member companies. Regarding our sales revenue, we have about 1 billion forints monthly. And now, when we prepared for or filed for this grant, there were 5,500 people working in our members. 264 are women and 286 are men. So it's about half and half. A little bit more. There are about 600 today, but the proportions remained. But still, the question is, what does that conductor do on my slide? You will understand by the time I finish. But now what I'd like to speak about is that when we prepared for this Best Women's Workplace Award, what was it that we found? What were we up against? On the 2nd of December 2021 is when we received this prize. Thank you, Andrea, for the opportunity. But believe me, it was not easy to write this whole thing. You know why? Because when we started to fill out the different points based on which we had to file for this application, we came up with difficulties, and not because we did not have examples, but because we could have brought up so many examples, and we were thinking, are they going to give us an award if we file this? But it's so evident. Isn't it evident that the mothers who come back from maternity leave can come back to work at her workplace? Isn't it evident that a pregnant woman gets easier work and they do not have to work in the old places, but they work in an easier job? Or isn't it evident that people living with disabilities, we create the conditions that they can work there, or that they receive gifts at Christmas, or we go on an excursion? To us, these are very evident things that we participate in integration of young people, and we give jobs to or work to university students. I didn't understand it. It was so difficult to find because it was so normal to us. So we were asking what is not normal, what we can fit into our application. We put all of them down, but still we focused in our application on proving to the jury that we don't have a separate male and female inequality, because everybody's equality. It does payment does not depend on whether you're a man or a woman, but it depends on how you work, what quality of work you do, how much work you do, how loyal you are, and what it is that you put on the table. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's a man or a woman. And we don't have a masculine type of work. Sometimes they say that it's IT is a masculine work. We have a woman IT person, or working on other like tool manufacturing of designing a tool. The best there is a lady who designs the best tools for us. So in our company there is no difference, and that's what we wanted to prove and show. Gender cannot be a question if somebody is suitable for the job or not. Very often they ask me, in such a masculine sector, how can I be a company head as a woman? I usually say, well, I don't know, because I've never been a man. So I don't know. What I can tell you is how I do it. It was very interesting for us that when we started to examine how many women leaders we have in our company, and we started to count them, in all the eight companies we have female top leaders, directors, management. We always have lots of women. We have managing directors. There's a director in the company board, like purchase director, production manager, and even the head of the holding company is a woman. So practically it was a surprise to us, because to us it was totally normal and natural. And somebody doesn't become a leader just because somebody's a man or a woman. And that's when I come back to the conductor. Can the conductor at the head of the orchestra play on every instrument? Probably he or she cannot. Maybe they can play the piano or play the flute or the bass or the strings. Might not. What can he or she do? He or she can pull the whole concert or orchestra together. They fasten them up, they slow them down, and so on, and keeps the whole orchestra together. This is the job of a leader, to keep the team together, hold them together, to find the right person to the right position, to give directions, to give jobs, to motivate them, to help them, support them. The same as a conductor. Does it depend on whether you're male or not? No, it doesn't. It depends on whether this person is suitable to do that or not. So that's what we put in our scheme application, and probably that's why we managed to win the award. But let us not forget that in spite of all, we do expect from our male colleagues to be respectful and polite to the ladies, because in our company, this is what normal is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will continue presenting the good practices. Now from Slovakia, to create the balance between private life and work. We all know this is not an easy job. So let's take a look at the Slovak example, what solutions they offer us from which we can learn. Again, this will be on video. And that's how we can listen to it.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to present best practices from Slovakia regarding work-life balance. At the beginning, I would like to say that the participation of women on labor market is very important, and also women entrepreneurs play a significant role in our economies. Women run businesses, small, medium, and also big one, and therefore create or contribute to the profit of all economies. On the other hand, statistics says that mixed team, women and men, are more productive, more cooperative in positive way. They also gain better financial results. Furthermore, I would like to also mention that teams or companies who are led by women in different positions and also in different management levels are also more productive, and companies has better financial results. According to the Slovak law, woman has the right to stay with children, to care about children, up 3 or maybe up 6 years, depends on how many children she has. Nowadays, there are many women who would like to shorten their parental leave, and they show their interest to return earlier back to work. Those companies who know that the value of company is on people, and loyal and satisfied people are the key of economy of company, they are very successful. Also, there are many companies who lay attention on women managers on different levels of managing, working mothers, and also future mothers. The value of women potential was verified also during the pandemic. As we know, from one day to another, were closed all kindergartens and all schools, and it was mostly women who had to stay at home, caring about children, being educated, and also working. And here, in our presentation, I would like to present the best practices from Slovakia. At the beginning, I would like to point out that these best practices were offered by some companies before the pandemic. That time, these practices were something like not very usual, maybe some additional benefits to women. So please look what was offered. So we have the first company, is one of the largest producer of beer. This company offer for their employees, mostly women, preschool, kindergarten for children up till 3 years, and kindergartens. Maybe we would ask that what is special on that. We would like to say that in Slovakia, in big cities, it's pretty hard to get a place in kindergarten, and not only kindergarten, also preschool kindergarten. That's why getting a place or having a place, it's for women something very worth. All women will very appreciate it. This company also is one of the company who has internal guidelines, parental code. It means that in case that there will be necessity of some people, or shortage of people, that some people have to leave the company, the company will really select the people and ask about their status, if there are single parents and not parents, and single parents will not be determined, it will not terminate. Also, this company offers flexible working hours, or flexible working time. Another company offered internal playground corner, which is from their words, is very used by women and their children, and also maternity bonus. What means that they can be paid 4 times in a high of monthly salary. And another company, a gas industry company, offer extra free paid days for childcare or for care for family members, and also 1 paid day, which you can spend with your child when he's attending the first day at school. Another positive examples are from beer brewing company, which offer flexible working time, or in case that there is a woman with families or women with children, it's possible to have shorter working hours, or maybe working hours at the company and possibility to work also at home. There is also extra bonus for carrying a child, what is very appreciated, because we know that services connected with child care are very expensive, and all financial benefits are very needed, and they have gender equality in a collective agreement. Next company, International Business Machine Corporation, for example, prepares or offers for their employees, mostly women, so-called online portal, where women which are in maternity or parental leave can find a lot of information, courses, and also job offers. So this means that they are very open for women who would like to go back or return to the place, and they can help her to find new positions much easily. They also offer many workshops for parents. Another company, British multinational groceries, for example, offer a very interesting benefit, is the maternity leave payment. It means that in Slovakia, it works in the way that woman has first 34 weeks so-called maternity leave, and she will get from government around 75% from her salary. This company pays the difference between this 75% and the netto sum of the salary she would get. So it means in the reality that during these 34 weeks she will get from the state and from the company the sum she will get as she would be working. I think that this is very nice benefit. Also, there is some benefits for men, and also payday, one payday, the first day in September when woman or man is with his child attending the school. And also it's quite nice benefit that in case that parents need a time, a special or extra time which they would like to spend with their families, they can take 4 weeks in a year, and it will be unpaid, but still it's time they can use as a work-life balance. Another company has very good experience with so-called working in a smaller teams. This company welcome women, working mothers, and mothers who are expecting children, and also men, of course. And their strategy is having more and more smaller teams. And in these teams is very good cooperation and substitutability. It means that if there is not a problem, but in case that the woman needs to stay at home with the children, or child is ill or she is ill, it is no problem that somebody else or some another people will finish this work. It means that there is very good cooperation and communication. All people in the team know the job, know the work, know each other, and they help each other. And finally, these working groups has a very good results. During the pandemic, and mostly at the beginning of pandemic, these first months, a lot of working women were very frustrated and had a fear how to manage working and how to manage educating with children and their work-life balance, because the situation was unpredicted, and it was maybe for some of them very, very tough and very difficult. Those employers who communicate effectively rely on her employees, give them more flexibility. They found out that women working at home can work very effectively with very good results. Of course, during these 2 years, situation changed, and the employers found out that working at home is something what can be done also very effectively, and a lot of women very appreciate it. They can much easily combine work-life balance and caring about the children. On the other hand, impact on family means that benefits which were presented here, which were mostly which were offered before the pandemic and seemed to be something like benefits, and maybe not very usual. For example, working at home, remote working, or part-time jobs, or having shorting hours, are now after pandemic maybe necessity for some companies, started to be usual, and more companies find out that women very appreciate it. Companies also found that women potential is very, very high. They can rely on women, and women are very productive, very effective, and the key success of each company, because woman means also loyal, personal, and reliable person. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to present
előadást Lengyelország.
Thank you very much for this presentation from Poland. On the first video was in Polish, but Jolanta will help us for us to understand how they try in Poland to create this work-life balance. And the second video will be in English.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the result of the misunderstanding, we got presentation in Polish, so I choose only some issues from this presentation to translate. The speaker is Nina Gabryś. She is plenipotentiary of the Mayor of Krakow for Equality Policy and Chairman of the Equal Treatment Council in Krakow. She is an author of numerous initiatives and co-creator and vice president of 100 Years of Women's Voice Association, one of the main organizations in Krakow working for women's rights. In her presentation, she spoke about the implemented project related to the equality policy, which included the balance between professional and family life. She spoke about steps, how they prepared some solution. The starting point was diagnosis research in order to identify any limitations, discriminations, as well as the needs and areas which should be supported by employers, including solution enabling free childcare, flexible working hours. And just now, as changed the situation, because we are in different moment than 2 years ago and different situation because next to is the war. They are preparing new solutions adequate to current needs. In order to develop new solutions, it was the appointment of teams included persons of different levels and position in order to hear the voice of all environment. Because, like she said, Nina Gabryś said, is a citation, we will never come up with the perfect solution, but we can implement solutions that meet the greatest number of the needs. And thank you. If may I, about next presentation is prepared by a student of our university, as she is young artist. I also suggest to add her artwork in the background. In this way, we will have presentation and also we will get some artistic impressions.
Best practices from Poland. Support of women employees during the pandemic. Good afternoon. I am a student of Pedagogical University in Krakow, majoring in painting in the Institute of Painting and Artistic Education. I'm 21 years old and I get involved in events organized by the Active Women Association in Poland. The pandemic has completely changed the conditions of women's work in Poland over the past 2 years. Fortunately, there are organizations created to help Polish women in the psychological, medical, and legal spheres. In my presentation, I will focus on 3 issues. Number 1, how employers have been supporting women working during the pandemic. The 6-step program. Proper actions of employers were of fundamental importance for the career growth of Polish women and consequently for the growth of companies as well. Number 2, example of actions supporting women aged over 50 years old. And number 3, support for women during the pandemic, for example, foundation acceptance. What actions have Polish companies taken so not to lose the potential women brings to the workplace? It is worth introducing solutions which will help Polish women organize their work in the new conditions and function better after the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. Employers and leaders are taking actions to build a more adequate work and flexibility model ensure equal opportunities, and prevent professional exclusion by taking efforts to support women in adapting to the challenging reality. Deloitte developed a list of 6 steps employers who hire women can introduce during the pandemic. Now I will outline and briefly discuss the suggested steps. Step number 1. Make flexible working the norm. Flexible working doesn't just mean working from home, something that has become the norm during the pandemic, but it also helps women keep the work and life balance. Possible solutions include reduced work hours, working longer but fewer days each week, and job sharing. What is important, it's not just nice to have that applies only to parents. It should be the norm available to everyone. Step number 2. Social enterprise or leading with empathy and trust. Empathy and trust should be the core of leadership. Leading with empathy promotes an open and empathetic culture that can build mutual trust and independence among employees, drive motivation, proactive attitudes, and smooth collaboration. Step number 3. Promote networking, mentorship, and sponsorship as ways to learn and grow. Nearly 1/3 of respondents interviewed by Deloitte, which includes almost 30% of senior managers, cited that availability of mentoring and networking opportunities as beneficial to their careers. Important solutions also include conversations with other women seen as role models who can help solve problems, inspire, and provide a space to face challenges. Step number 4. Create learning opportunities that fit within employees' daily lives. Employers should provide flexible access to the expertise and necessary support. They should adapt the offer to different technical and time abilities of individual employees. Step number 5. Ensure that reward, succession, and promotion processes address unconscious bias. Addressing the risk of unconscious bias in structuring the reward and promotion processes, including as it relates to perceptions of women's caregiving responsibilities, now is more important than ever. Step number 6. Diversity, respect, and inclusion. Diversity, respect, and inclusion should be part of every corporate culture. According to the research, 25% of women who question progressing in their career cited non-inclusive behaviors such as microaggression and exclusion from meetings and projects as reasons. All such behaviors need to address to head-on through clear messaging, training, and action. These steps were successfully introduced and promoted in Polish companies to ensure that women have conditions to be fulfilled professionally and maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle. In the second part of my presentation, I would like to move to the examples of organizations supporting women in Poland. Service Women 50+ created possibilities for mature women to publish their own content, seek full-time or additional jobs, exchange the information and advice on jobs. Polish women from different parts of the world have published on this platform, including Australia, Canada, and Germany. The jobs were offered on this platform during the pandemic, such as freelancing, tutoring, childcare, coaching, and running their own business. The Women in Business program, founded by Deloitte, is a part of Deloitte's inclusion and diversity strategy. Numerous courses were held as a part of the program for educational and informational purposes. The program organized, among the other things, the global webcast for International Women's Day, Deloitte panel as a part of the Women of Success Week, and study on women's career in financial management. The Foundation Acceptance has taken the initiative to provide free psychological, legal, and medical assistance for women that addresses the effect of COVID-19 pandemic in terms of increased violence and gender-based discrimination. The consultation was provided from April 2021 with both phone and face-to-face contact. Moreover, the Foundation offered medical transport with qualified personnel. Thank you for your attention.
So, okay, so now our last good practice will be from the Czech Republic. Just as the ambassador mentioned in his presentation, we still see a huge wage gap between male and female employees. So now I would like to ask Alenka Šťastná how the equal pay day works in the Czech Republic and how they fight against this kind of phenomenon. Köszönöm.
It's very nice for me to be here in this very important day for women, because I am from the generation and I remember that mainly men celebrated this day. So it's very good to discuss here the women's topic. And I would like to share with you our experience with our main project, Equal Pay Day. Ingrid spoke about it a little bit. We very love this project because it is not only event, but it is a campaign, and we do it since 2010. But, you know, we faced a lot of difficulties during the COVID time, and because I am responsible for all the company, and this event and campaign brings almost 80% of income of the company, I will put some economic information into the presentation. The aim of this event is raise public awareness and speak more about pay gap. When we started, the difference between salaries, men and women, were 27.6%. So we were in the last position in Europe, and it was necessary to do something with it. During the years, we are successful because everybody knows that there is some problem, and there are many activities, mainly in companies, they try to change it. So we put more and more activities into our project. So now we do a lot of education activities, mainly mentoring, and we try to introduce as much women as role models during this period because we have a lot of support from the media. You can see here the main color of the conference is red, so I was happy that in the hotel they have this red watches because I didn't bring my red clothes to show you that the red color is very strong. During the period, we supported more than 18,000 women, and we have them in our pool of team. As I said, we have an intense media campaign, and we are lucky that the event is listed in EU website as a best practice in this field of gender pay gap. So we are moving on, and I can show you more. This picture is about the time of COVID. In 2020, we were faced a very difficult decision because 2 weeks before live conference, everything was closed, you remember. So it was necessary during 2 weeks move the conference to online. And I didn't tell you that we have around 2,000 people on this conference, so it is very, very huge. And we have more than 1,000 people speaking there. So we try to learn them how to use Zoom. We learn ourselves how to use Zoom because it was necessary to do it. Economic reason was the first because the partners pay us the work for this conference. And when they would ask us to give them money back, it was, I think, bankrupt for our organization. So first year in 2020, we were very successful and we moved all the conference to online. All 35 speakers spoke on the conference. We had 1,800 people online, and we did it in the same time as a live conference. So it was terrible. We didn't sleep a lot because it was first time we did it. Nobody knew how to work. We had to teach our speakers where to put the camera, where to put the light, and everything. So, you know, it was an experience. In the next year, 2021, we were professionals. So we rented the studio, and we decided to put something more on online. So we divided the conference to 7 days because everybody was tired from online. So we decided to have just 2 hours a day to discuss the topic, because we don't discuss not only pay gap, but we introduce companies who support women. We share the best practice, and we share the personal stories of women. So it is like a power bank for women, because they need to feel the energy, and they need to share not only experience, but as everybody says, the fears and the difficulties they have at home, and they can ask for help or for support from everybody else. Maybe I can say that we try to put more international experience. So it was the first year when we had more speakers from abroad, not only from Europe, but from United States, from Brazil, from South Africa, and from Thailand too. So it was really very international conference, and it is, I think, very nice that each speaker could be in his house, and we were able to put everything together. But it is necessary to go away. So this year we have something new. We bring people from CEI region, 14 experts from 7 countries. and we will learn them how to make this conference and campaign in their countries. So we are like a teacher. It's new. The conference this year, I hope, will be offline, so we can meet in each other, and I hope we will be able to have more than 1,000 people again. We used the experience from the past 2 years, and we put one more day to the conference, and we have 1 day online mentoring. I didn't say that the conference is divided into 2 parts. One part is the discussion with the speakers, and the second day are mentoring tables. We have more than 70 mentors, and they use the method speed mentoring. So around the round tables, they discuss the topics and they support women. We are very lucky that we have many very important and very famous people who are supporting us. Here you can see, there is not one picture. There is Czech Miss World, Tatiana Kuchařová. There is very famous fashion designer Blanka Matragi, and we have other supporters who help us with the campaign. This is the invitation from this year's conference, which will be in April. You can come if you want, or you can try the mentoring online on Sunday, 10th of April. And what we learned during the COVID, I have to say, never give up. It is my I think, experience. The other one is every situation has a solution. The third is we are able to learn a lot in a very short time. And every problem is also a new opportunity. Here you can see part of our team, because we have around 200 volunteers who are working, I think 4 or 5 months a lot to prepare everything for the conference. So I think we will be successful this year, and we will support our women. Thank you.
Köszönjük szépen.
Thank you very much. And slowly but surely, we are coming to the end of this afternoon's program. I don't know if the representative of the Family Friendly Hungary is here. Yes, she's here. Agnes Suromikovács. She will share with us some of her thoughts on behalf of the Family Friendly Hungary Center. They do a lot, especially through mothers and through families, for women employees and for the situation of women in Hungary, so that we could be better off when we want to have children or when we want to do anything. Excuse me for a second. I'd like to announce here that the most important cooperating partner in Hungary was invited to say the closing words. Agnes Suromikovács is the director. She is a super counselor, and it's a great honor that she came here. So, and this will be the closing remarks. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Distinguished Chairperson, dear guests, I think that today we heard lots of very interesting things. Important research results were shared. We heard lots of very nice, good practices. And we all could learn a lot today from how we reacted to a totally unexpected crisis situation. And I hope very much that we will be able to draw the necessary consequences or conclusions from this past more than a year and a half. And if in the future we will have a similar pandemic situation, or, for example, if we think about the current crisis, the war, if we find ourselves in such a situation, we are already stronger and when we have to face these challenges. These will be very important experiences to company leaders and to decision makers in the given area and industry. We hope that this way we can help families a whole lot more, including women, so that they could stand their ground among such challenges. We ourselves at the Family Friendly Hungary Center, we believe very much that families need to be supported and those who raise small children. I myself am a mother of 4, and every day I experience what it is like when you want to balance on a rope and you try to comply with all the challenges of your work that you love, and you comply with expectations of your family and your children who you love even more. I have been in situations when a very important, as a matter of fact, a very tense work talks, I was informed that right away I had to take home my child because the child was put into quarantine. It was not easy. Also, all of a sudden, I was in a situation that with the 4 children, I had to handle the workplace situation and lead the colleagues how we can stand our ground in our environment, which was all of a sudden restricted to home, and at the same time care for 4 children. And sometimes the support chain was had certain hiccups, and also we had to care for them. So I myself experienced this. We do believe in our center that the social environment in which we live is extremely important for the families to be able to bloom. How we want to achieve to have the right environment, or such an environment in Hungary. From the smallest of examples, this is also very important. In our center, we have a kind of workplace model creche, even though we support 14 children only, but these are 14 families, but they can reconcile very efficiently their work and family life. I personally feel that it's very important that in every family we trust that they make the good decisions. It's very important that when there is a parent of a small child and they want to decide on the labor market what, when, and to what extent they want to go back to the labor market. I've been in a situation when for years and years I was at home and raising my children because this is what they and I needed. And there was a time when I worked next to 4 small children. So the fact that I could do this, that I could choose when I was at home and when I was with a woman of career with an 8-month-old child, this was a big help to me. In this workplace crash, this is what we try to do. We try to help, and we important the crash building program in Hungary. We are part of a huge development in which Hungary 3,300 will be the number of increasing of places in crashes in Hungary. And our center will be a professional center helping the applicants to be successful, and so that later on they will be able to implement these programs and actually create such places so that they would be filled. And these places which are for the time being still only a dream. Now, regarding workplace crashes, there is it's very important, and sometimes it's also an aspect of our family-friendly program. This is a very significant, important, major audited program. Semmelweis University spoke about this, that and if an organization, if they apply, they have to register here. You can do this at our website. Once you do this registration, then there is a pre-qualification or assessment questionnaire that you need to fill out. This is a lengthier process. This questionnaire is, again, a help to family-friendly workplaces, because with this, they themselves can think it over what kind of family-friendly measures have already been implemented and what are the possibilities that they still have it, but they haven't thought about it yet. Or it's a good idea and they could be introduced without much funding. Now the process is divided. If you are qualified based on these qualifications, then we issue a certificate, so they can use this certificate and saying that family-friendly workplace. If they did not comply with these criteria, then our colleagues will help them how they can, what they can do on the long run too, so that later on, after a couple of months or after a longer time, they could apply successfully for this kind of certificate. In Hungary, more than 600 certificates of this kind have been issued to workplaces. But it's not only the workplaces that are certified, but also places of services. There are more than 800 service providers with the right certificate that they are family friendly. That means that family client enters their place, that they can carry out their or take care of their businesses in a family-friendly environment, whether it's a hotel or a car dealer, doesn't matter. Whatever is also important is the supportive environment from society somehow be present. One of the possibilities for this is to inform the families. We want to operate, or we do operate, a website for families, for parents, grandparents, or for those who plan to have children, where they get credible information. We also had articles published from experts and information which help in raising children. And also we are proud, in connection with family support, that on our site you can access the most credible information in Hungary on how, with what conditions and what type of supports are accessible to families. 35 different kinds of support can be found on our calculator, and there is a very simple step answering 7 questions. You can see the different forms of support that are relevant to them, and that they need to go more into details so that afterwards they can start better, so that they can get hold of and access this kind of support. Unfortunately, we can say that not everybody can access the supported family background that they deserve. A lot of people mentioned here during the speeches that during the pandemic times, the victims of domestic violence increased. We also have the National Crisis Management and Information telephone line. We operate it, where we provide active help to victims of domestic violence and to victims of traffickers in humans. This telephone line receives more than 10,000 calls a year. More than 10,000 callers are helped a year. And we have supported nearly 7,000 victims in placing them. It has a very important coordination role also in the crisis management. We run 20 crisis centers, 8 safe shelters, and we also have crisis management ambulances. And we organize the transport of those fleeing. We also know that not all the children develop the way that would be ideal. There are children whose development make their parents or grandparents think twice. But it is absolutely important to involve professionals in order to evaluate, assess if the child needs help. Sometimes it's absolutely clear and evident, but sometimes it's important to make sure that the family gets the right diagnosis very quickly and gets the necessary help as soon as possible. Now, our project called Children's Path is a kind of project where I'm proud to say that it created a methodological center of European level. Here we have unique achievements that we are really, really proud of. 37 different types of methods, methodologies, and manuals have been created within this project. 28 different types of accredited free of charge training is accessible to experts, and there are 12,000 experts trained already at these training courses. So I think that this way we really made the difference for children, for families with small children, to get the necessary help, because if the child doesn't develop the way they should, then this is a really big help. And finally, I'd like to tell you that when children are adopted, we very often help families. We have a kind of awareness-raising campaign. We have had it not too long ago, in which we try to show that if somebody decides to adopt children because in their families they don't have children as they would have liked to, but they want to have children in their families, how they can start on this path without the least possible pain and to get the most expert help. We are planning to launch several programs which aim at parents with children and aim at children with career orientation. And we also like to raise their financial awareness, because that's also very important that it be part of career orientation, so that families would be aware of this, so that children could be very conscious in choosing their careers, and later on they can consciously make their financial decisions. Basically, these are the methods how we support the different families. Now, the work that I just mentioned, we will continue in the future along the same topics. That's what we plan. I'd like to greet all my fellow women and mothers, especially on behalf because of the International Women's Day. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference, and I'd like to thank all the speakers for what they said. It was very valuable and very useful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Agnes Turomi. And she did not mention, because this center does so many things that perhaps she didn't have time to pay attention to this, that I personally would like to thank on my behalf and on behalf of Katalin Hajos at the programs, at the training of care for the elderly, and which made our life very rich. And Dr. Annette Robert is here with us, who is here on behalf of the Semmelweis University, but she was our trainer. And I think we enriched this course very much. Only young people, or mostly young people, participated in this. So they were to be experts on geriatrics, or not medically, but socially. And I think this synergy was really, really useful. So this really ties me to the family-friendly Hungary Center. And because of this project, we started a cooperation, and I hope we will continue with it. I would like to thank all of you who have been here or who have been with us online. This video will remain there, or maybe it will be edited, but it will certainly be on YouTube. So those values that we have collected here and we share, because it's a wonderful collection, At least this is how I feel. I'd like to thank everyone, and I'm really proud of this. It will be kept for future. And we will try to position each other at higher levels too, but not higher, but more international level. The next one will be in the UN, CSW, which will be the largest women's conference in the world, where we have already registered a kind of fringe event, because we are an NGO in the consultative status, so we have this opportunity to do so. And now I'd like to announce that our dear partners would also, we would like our dear partners to be participants there too. Well, we have to close this with some sadness, unfortunately, because unfortunately the chairperson of Red Cross Hungary could not be here with us, but probably because of the nearby war, well, we will tackle this. And organizations dealing with the elderly have already approached us too, because we need to do something about this too, because it is our job in some way, because we also have a slogan that women's career without age limit. We try to comply with that, but some people are not as lucky as we are, and we try to think of them too. When we go home, let's think about them too. From news, unfortunately, we get bad news, so we cannot be just so freely joyful. So thank you very much for you to be here too. And now we can have a friendly conversation. So we'd like to say goodbye to those who have been following us online and listen to us. But now we'd like to continue right here with some sandwiches on the table. And I'd like to invite you to some friendly conversation. Thank you very much for being here with us. Goodbye.